process of making accurate, informed decisions on the policy that's ultimately going to affect the people of the state of Washington.
Chairwoman, Ranking Member Harris, honorable members of the committee, I'm Melissa Gomboski, pleased to be here today on behalf of Evergreen and Vancouver Public Schools. As a professional lobbyist, I get to do a lot of public testimony. The chair will require me to state my name for the record and what organization I'm advocating for. So I might say, Senator Robinson, honorable members of the Ways and Means Committee, my name is Melissa Gomboski. I'm here today on behalf of Spokane Public Schools. I'm here speaking in favor of the bill in front of you. Or I might say, unfortunately, I am here expressing concerns, and then I would explain very clearly what my concerns are and state that for the public record. I might want to give an example of why I have a concern and then suggest what lawmakers could do to the bill in front of them to help alleviate some concerns.
When you're preparing for it, you have to remember that you have a limited amount of time. Depending on how big the policy is, that can average between a minute up to 3 minutes, and sometimes if there's not a lot of people testifying or it's a light day in the policy world, you can have a little more time. But I would always be prepared to be concise, be very clear. If you're there in the committee room, it may be a little intimidating. Don't be intimidated. Be there, let your voice be heard.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabrielle Hewer. This panel includes myself and my peers at Lake Washington High School. We all firmly believe in this idea and intend to explain through our testimony why the passage of this bill is essential.
Sometimes when you're going to provide public testimony and you're working with a coalition or a group that is advocating for the same position that you are, you can sign up a panel of testifiers. You can coordinate your testimony. One person can take one aspect of the argument that you like to share with lawmakers or the position. The second testifier can go further and delve into that detail and share data. And then maybe your third testifier will share that personal story or the impact that that policy might have on an individual Washington citizen. So you can make your voice stronger by coordinating with other Washingtonians and coming up with a panel to advocate for your position.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Dingra and committee members for coming.
When we're providing public testimony on the record, it's important that we show respect for the individual lawmakers that we're testifying in front of, but also respect for the institution of the Washington State Legislature. We can show that respect by calling lawmakers by the title that has been given to them by voters. And so when you end your testimony, end by thanking them for their time.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
It's great that we have lobbyists and stakeholders who are very informed on maybe the technical or the nuances of the policy. We hear from them, we work with them and see them quite often. But when we have testimony coming in from citizens of Washington State, we perk up, we listen. We want to hear the people actually let us know about the things that are being considered here in the legislature.
So often lawmakers hear numbers and statistics, and it may not hit home until they hear what impact the bill in front of them has on a specific Washington citizen. So if you can tell the story of how this impacts a member of your family, how it impacts your job, how it impacts your school or community organization, sometimes that's a really effective way to communicate your position.
I've had situations where I may have had a preconceived notion on a particular policy, and I thought I had my mind made up. I thought this is the way I was going to vote on this particular policy. And as the committee was going forth and we started to hear, you start to hear stories, you start to really think about it. It causes us to do more work, which is what we should be doing. We should dig a little deeper into it. I've literally had my mind changed, my vote changed, by listening to public testimony from somebody who really had an experience that would help us in our decision-making process. So again, your testimony is super important and is impactful. The process is important that you participate in, so we really encourage it.
During the 1960s, 70s, or 80s, anything having to do with arts here in Western Washington involved John and Ann Gould Hallberg. So along comes a young man named Dale Chihuly in 1971, and he has a new medium for art.
All right, good morning. Thank you all for being here. We're just about to get started. Thank you to the Seattle Convention Center for hosting us at the Summit Building's Garden Terrace. We very much appreciate it. I'm Communications Director Brianna Aho from Governor Ferguson's team. I'll just run you briefly through who you'll be hearing from this morning. First, you'll hear from Governor Bob Ferguson, then Mike Katz, K-A-T-Z, Chief Business and Product Officer of T-Mobile, then Denise Moriguchi, M-O-R-I-G-U-C-H-I, President and CEO of Awajimaya, Heather Kurtenbach, K-U-R-T-E-N-B-A-C-H, Executive Secretary of the Washington State Building and Construction Trades Council, and Dr. Betsy Cantwell, C-A-N-T-W-E-L-L, President of Washington State University. After our speakers conclude, the governor will sign the executive order from the podium. We'll take a few photos, and then the speakers will be available for questions. With that, Governor Bob Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Brianna, and thanks again to our hosts and to all of you for being here. And for those, we have many people standing. Feel free to grab these chairs. If you want to sit down, we'll be here for a few minutes, so don't be shy about grabbing a seat. In a few moments, I'll be signing an executive order creating the Governor's Economic Development Council. I'm joined by many of the 26 members who will be serving on that council, and you'll soon have the opportunity to hear from several of them. I'm going to chat about what motivated me to create this council, how we got here, and what our objectives are for this council. But first, I want to thank each and every one of these 26 individuals. As you've seen from the list of folks who are joining this council, it is by any measure a high-powered group of individuals who have extremely busy lives and important jobs. And when I reached out to ask if they would serve in this capacity, we did not receive a single no, and every yes was enthusiastic, which I think demonstrates the appetite for the need for this work. Washington State has always been a national leader in innovation. Our economy is powered by the best workers, creators, and entrepreneurs in the world. We lead in aerospace, tech, advanced marketing, clean energy, life sciences, agriculture, and maritime trade. We have the 9th largest economy in the nation. The latest State of the States report shows Washington ranks first in the nation in economic productivity. We were recently ranked 2nd best state economy by Wallet Hub. U.S. News and World Report routinely ranks Washington State among the top 10 best states in the country. And that's because we have the hardest working, most innovative individuals in the country right here. We have a lot to be proud of, but we cannot take our strength for granted. And indeed, we have many challenges as a state, and we need to be clear-eyed about those challenges and making sure we address them. Too many Washingtonians are out of work. Our state is unaffordable for too many Washingtonians, and we have areas where those rankings are not so good, where we're not number 1 or number 2. We need to make sure businesses can start and grow here in Washington State. That's good for our economy, and that's good for jobs. And that's why my administration has been taking action. We've used the Governor's Strategic Reserve Fund to create thousands of jobs across diverse sectors, such as quantum computing, food processing, advanced manufacturing, forest products, clean energy, and more. We've made record investments to increase the housing supply in Washington State, including through the Housing Trust Fund and reforms to building requirements. And on my first day in office, I signed an executive order to cut down on permitting time across state agencies. In just a year and a half, we have seen clear results from that work. Just to give you a couple examples, the Department of Licensing has cut processing time by almost 50% across its 340 license and permits. It's down from 46 days to 25 days. All license types are being processed in 30 days or less, and the agency no longer has any backlogs. The Department of Labor and Industries achieved a 75% reduction in processing time for new contractor registrations. The Department of Ecology is implementing a new online application status tracker for 30 application processes that don't currently have a way to check the status of an application online. And the Department of Financial Institutions cut processing time by over 50% for franchise application. So today, we're taking the next step in our efforts to build Washington's economy. many of us were chatting before coming out here, and what I mentioned to the folks behind me was that in my first year as governor, it became clear in many conversations I had with some of the folks behind me, but also just many other individuals across our state, workers, business leaders, labor leaders, tribal leaders. It was clear that folks feel Washington State needs a plan for economic development. And I've spoken about the need for a plan all across the state. In a previous life, as some of you know, I was briefly a professional chess player. If you play chess at a high level internationally, you know you have to have a plan at all times. You have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're drifting. By definition, you're drifting. And if you're drifting, you will lose. That's a fact in chess. It's a fact in life. It's a fact for business. It's a fact for a state. So starting last spring, we began developing our strategy with two components working in tandem. First, when I proposed my first budget last December, I included funding for a statewide economic development and competitiveness strategic plan led by my Department of Commerce. Secondly, today we're creating this council, a historic convening of senior leaders from business, labor, higher education, courts, tribes, and more. The council will serve as a venue for candid discussions among the economic development leaders of our state. And I plan to attend every one of these meetings, just to be clear. As you can see from the list, it takes time to assemble a group of individuals of this caliber. They're all extremely busy individuals, and so I'm so grateful they said yes, and the interest is strong. The last comparable body we had to this council as a state, we believe, was Governor Gregoire's Global Competitiveness Council in 2006, 2 decades ago. We need a new body to reflect our new era and guide our long-term strategy. So here are some of the outcomes and objectives we're looking for from this council. I want to be very clear, this is a non-exhaustive list. Part of this process is these members bringing their own ideas to the group as we work through it. But here are some objectives I certainly hope we can achieve. Number one, advise me and the Department of Commerce on that strategic plan, which will be due a year from now in June of 2027. This is critical work for the state, and the leaders we have joining us today will be a critical part of making sure we put together a strategy that is one that serves us well. Number two, identify forward-looking market opportunities and strategies to increase family wage jobs. I expect that work to guide my proposals for the upcoming legislative session, which is a critical one. It's a long session, it's a budget session. We have a lot to do in this upcoming session. Three, evaluate Washington's economic competitiveness relative to other states and global competitors. This is something I hear a lot about from folks as I travel the state. I'm looking forward to hearing concrete ways we can market Washington State to businesses from outside the state. Number four, review our regulatory environment to address barriers to economic growth in alignment with federal, state, and local policies. And fifth, bring us ideas that state agencies can take action on immediately. We must look to the future and work with leaders across our state to ensure we protect and grow our economy. The work we do today and the coming months will ensure Washington remains competitive for attracting businesses and investment. The work we do today and in the coming months will ensure Washington remains a place where people want to start and expand a business. And the work we do today and in the coming months will help businesses across Washington continue creating family wage jobs. You're now going to hear from several members of the council. I just want to briefly mention that the members who we have employ over 250,000 workers in Washington State. They represent over 500,000 union members. They educate over 100,000 students. They oversee tens of billions in port shipments and span many parts of our state on both sides of the mountain. I can't thank them enough for their willingness to serve in this capacity. And next up, you'll be hearing from one of those members, Mike Katz, Chief Business and Product Officer at T-Mobile. Thank you very much.
Governor Ferguson, thank you, and thank you for everybody for being here today. You know, when I got the call asking if T-Mobile would join this council, my answer was an immediate yes. And that's because T-Mobile, you know, we don't sit on the sidelines when there's a chance to build something better. And this is exactly the right moment for Washington to better shape its economic future. I want to kick off by telling you a little bit about T-Mobile. When people think of us, they often think of our Bellevue headquarters lit up in magenta at night T-Mobile Park, home of our Mariners, and hundreds of retail stores across the state. And that's all true, but it's not the whole story. T-Mobile is a Washington-first company. We were founded in Bellevue in 1994. We went public here in 2013. And it was here in Washington that in 2022, we became the most valuable telecommunications provider in the US and in the world. We're still headquartered here today, and the hearts of the thousands of T-Mobile team members and our many vendor companies and our collective families that make Washington our home are here. T-Mobile is the fastest growing mobile company in America, with growth in customers, jobs, and employees. And there are thousands and thousands of us working both with and for T-Mobile in Washington state. So that means that thousands of your friends, family members, neighbors, and it means thousands of people whose kids go to school here, who buy houses here, who coach Little League here. Every new employee we hire is another person building a life and putting down roots in Washington state. As we continue to grow and look ahead, we have a responsibility to help ensure that Washington remains a place where our colleagues can build a future. T-Mobile families face the same challenges that other families across the state face: finding affordable housing, navigating difficult commutes, managing the cost of living, choosing safe neighborhoods, and securing a great education. These challenges aren't about policy debates for us. They're real kitchen table issues that we work with our employees on every day. And each member of the T-Mobile team, as well as all citizens of Washington, deserves solutions through wise investments and responsible spending that make a real, meaningful difference in their lives. Frankly, the questions that this council is being asked to address are questions that we think about every day at T-Mobile. How do we keep Washington competitive? How do we make sure our team members are prepared for the challenges of a rapidly evolving economy? How do we align the needs of our customers, our employees, and our communities to ensure that all three realize a brighter economic future? As a company and team that serves the entire nation and whose customers make up nearly 1/3 of all of America, these are the real-world concerns that impact whether we expand here in Washington state or somewhere else, whether we invest in a new facility here or somewhere else, and whether the next generation of T-Mobile employees choose to build their careers and family here or somewhere else. Every resident of Washington deserves an economic policy that works for them, and that includes members of our customer care team in Bellingham. It includes T-Mobile engineers working in our East Wenatchee data center, our mobile experts at more than 200 retail stores from Seattle to Spokane, and the thousands of people working at our Bellevue headquarters. Each person deserves policies that drive real impact, not just policies that increase the number of programs or dollars spent, but actually deliver better schools, more affordable housing, and safer neighborhoods. Every Washingtonian deserves these kinds of results, and our expectation should be that Washington be amongst the best in the nation in each of these areas. For our part, T-Mobile is going to show up to this council the same way that we show up everywhere: direct, maybe a little bit relentless, and committed to driving policies that get results. We're not here to sit through quarterly meetings and nod along. We're here to collaborate, to push, to challenge, and to roll up our sleeves to do the work with our partners and our team across the state. Thank you, Governor Ferguson, for betting that business and government can work together to build a Washington where people and business continue to thrive. We are excited to bring the same unwavering focus in solving customer problems that has made T-Mobile famous, and for helping Washington, and we use it to help Washington build the best economy that we can be proud of. And we're ready to get to work. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Moriguchi, and I'm CEO President of Uwajimaya. Nearly a century ago, my grandparents started Uwajimaya by selling fish cakes from the back of a truck in Tacoma. Today, in our third generation, Uwajimaya continues to connect the Puget Sound region to the best of Asian food and culture while creating a place for people to gather, explore, and celebrate community. Like any business that has been around as long as we have, our growth has not always been straightforward and easy. We've faced economic downturns, shifts in consumer behavior, and significant local and global challenges. We've had to adapt to changing markets, to evolving customer needs, new policies, and new ways of bringing community together. This has shown me that adaptation, flexibility, and multi-sector partnership are essential, not only to running a successful business, but to creating an economic environment where businesses of all sizes can grow and thrive. And when businesses thrive, they create greater opportunity and prosperity for workers, families, and communities across our state. At the heart of everything we do are people, the more than 500 employees who make our work possible, and the thousands of customers we serve each week. As a retailer, we understand that affordability matters. Families across Washington State are working hard to make their budgets stretch further. Economic growth is most meaningful when it improves the lives and expands opportunities for all throughout the state. Our success has always depended on many of Washington's strengths: a talented workforce, strong transportation infrastructure, and deep connections to global markets. Those advantages cannot be taken for granted, and I look forward to helping to identify ways we can build on them for the future. As a leader of a multi-generational family business, I think often about the economy we are building for the next generation. We have an opportunity to ensure that Washington remains a place where businesses can put down roots, innovate, expand, and continue to thrive for decades. I know this is a priority for Governor Ferguson, and I'm especially excited that this council brings together leaders from different industries, regions, and backgrounds. The best economic development strategies emerge from listening, collaboration, and a shared commitment to Washington's future. Thank you, Governor Ferguson, for having me at the table. I'm honored to serve and look forward to the work ahead. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Heather Kurtenbach. I'm the Executive Secretary of the State Building Trades. So Washington is a proud union state, and that's something that we should be proud to say out loud. Excuse me, the wind is there. We've built one of the strongest apprenticeship systems in the country, and we back that up with solid prevailing wage laws. There are talented people in every corner of our state right now who are working hard or ready to jump in. I was just over in Eastern Washington, and there are a lot of exciting projects wanting to move or getting ready to move. You can really feel the momentum over there, building over there, but you can also feel the pressure. People want these projects to actually happen, not sit in a stack of paperwork for years. Communities are ready, workers are ready, businesses are ready. The only question is whether the system can keep up. That's part of why I'm optimistic to be sitting on this council, but it's also why I'm sounding the alarm just a little bit. Like the governor has said, we can't take any of this for granted. So I'm really looking forward to talking with all of you, all of my fellow members, about how we keep our economy moving. And honestly, those conversations in Eastern Washington made it crystal clear permitting reform isn't just a nice to have, it's urgent. We almost got the governor's permit reform bill passed last session, and I'm looking forward to getting that passed in 2027. The governor and I worked closely on this because if we don't modernize the system, these projects and the jobs tied to them will stall, and we can't afford that, not for Eastern Washington, not for any part of the state, honestly. And I think, here's the thing. None of this works unless labor and business are pulling in the same direction. When those two groups are at odds, everything slows down. But when we're aligned, talking, problem solving, and pushing together, that's when we actually get stuff done. That's when we actually can build things. And that's, when projects move. That's when workers get trained and hired. That's when communities really start to see results. We should also be looking at how we expand the apprenticeship opportunities that we in Washington State do so well. When business, labor, higher ed, everyone represented here sits at the same table, we can come up with real workable ideas that shape our economic future. This council is going to get some great work done. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I'm grateful to my colleagues for stepping into this work with me. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Betsy.
It's always a little dangerous to have the nerd engineer go last. Thank you, Governor Ferguson, for both your leadership and for bringing this council together. I think this is an incredibly important time for the state of Washington. I am new enough in Washington that I look at things like the World Cup coming here and how many people I know around the world who are talking to me about the state of Washington now who have never done that in the many, many years that I've known them. And that isn't just because we have the World Cup here. It's because we are actually known as a place where people innovate. I really am moved by the opportunity to make sure that the future of the state is also a future where we continue to innovate across all of the challenges that may come up. I sit at a research university. We have two prodigious research institutions in this state. Actually, 3 research institutions if you include the National Lab, but 2 universities whose part of our job at the University of Washington and Washington State University is to make sure that we sit at the beginning of the place where we are bringing ideas to the table that can become entirely new sectors of our economy, and the people who know how to take those ideas and innovate and become the entrepreneurs that allow them to happen. And I'm really hoping that as I participate in this council and in this commission, we have the opportunity to think through the entire innovation cycle from the beginning of the new ideas. We have so much capacity, as the governor said, in quantum and in energy futures like fusion energy. We also have more capacity than any state in the U.S. in the bioeconomy, which will drive global economies in the next 50 years. We should be at the forefront of that, and we have the capacity in both of our research, both of our research institutions. What I say at Washington State University a lot is we are not defined by our history. We face many challenges in higher ed. You all read about them all the time. They are merely the constant state of being that we all have to face. We are all defined by our ability to lead through. And so it's my hope that the strength of the Washington economy, which is 9/10 of the reason that I came here to serve at Washington State University, is really reflected through this work as strength for the people of Washington in the future. That means we, and again, I am telling you what I will bring to this work, need to be adaptable and connected. We need to be trusted, and we need to be the most capable in the country of turning new ideas into broad public impact. So a lot of what I say at Washington State University, because I spend an inordinate amount of my time on athletics, is we will compete and we will win. And I will bring that ethos to the state of Washington in my service here. We do need to compete. It is an incredibly competitive world. We have phenomenal assets in our universities, and I am very confident that between Robert Jones and myself, we are deeply, deeply committed to bring those assets to bear for our future. So we're all built for this mission. Let's go get it, compete and win. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, Governor.
Thanks very much. Wonderful. So thanks to all of our speakers, to everybody who's doing this important work. And what we're going to do now is sign this executive order and put it into effect. And we're going to do that right now. All right, everybody, you've signed up for it. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this to my team, just so I don't lose track of it. All right. Thank you. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that folks have. Chris, yeah.
And behind you,
the questions.
Governor, there's people that are standing behind you who have been critical of your leadership when it comes to business development in Washington State. How much of this is being done to pacify some of those critics who have been so loud here in the last few months?
How much of this is being done to pacify critics? I don't, first, Chris, spend a whole lot of time thinking about critics. That's just, you know me well enough, I think that you know that, number one. Number two, I'm interested in solving problems. Number three, I didn't wake up last week and think about forming this council, to be clear. As I mentioned in my talking points, this was an effort we really started last year and was an outgrowth of having conversations with many of the folks behind me and many other people across the state, where what you heard from those other speakers is what was being communicated to me as a new governor. Hey, are we losing our competitive edge? We're great, but we can't take that for granted. We need to make sure we're staying competitive relative to other states. What more can we be doing? We don't have a strategic plan to grow our economy. Why is that? It's been years since we've had that. And so it seemed to me last year that, A, we needed that plan. That became very clear, which is why, as I mentioned, we put in the budget last year, many months ago, resources so Department of Commerce could lead that effort. It also seemed to me that, hey, let's sort of formalize, for lack of a better word, all that feedback I've been getting, which is very helpful to me as a new governor, get folks in a room so we're all talking to each other. I think Heather mentioned this. Hey, so business and labor, we're all moving in the same direction. Critical, as one example. So for me, look, I appreciate when folks are candid with me. I have zero problem with that. I think anyone who's worked with me knows that. And so I appreciate the fact that folks have said, hey, Washington needs to do better in certain areas. I hardly give a speech where I don't talk about that, where I say we're doing great in these areas, but we've got real challenges, and we need to be focused and clear-eyed about those challenges. So I don't worry about folks who are critics. I don't have time for that, to be candid. What I'm focused on is moving our state forward, and super excited about the folks who are willing to lend their time. These are extremely busy people. One more thing I just will add to this is that, you know, the conversations I've had with the folks who are here is, look, one thing I can't stand in life is like serving on a task force. You spend all this time, some report comes out, it sits on a shelf, and nothing happens. Drives me crazy. And spend enough time in local government where I saw that happen. So I only put myself on task forces or councils unless I'm convinced there's going to be an outcome to it. And I promise everybody here that we're going to do our level best, because their time is so precious, to make sure we're getting outcomes as a result of this council, and I'm confident we'll do that. Let me get to some others. If that's, let me get. I'm just going to write, and I'll come back to you. Let me just get to everybody else. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Governor.
Yeah.
One thing you didn't mention is artificial intelligence, and obviously the whole world, but especially Washington State, is kind of on the cusp of a totally different economy.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, I know this is a big question, but how we can best position the state to be more competitive in the AI economy, and also to deal with some of the job losses we've already seen?
Sure. Happy to have others jump in on this as well if folks want to. So, you know, when it comes to AI at a high level for a complex question, right? You know, our role as a state is do everything we can, and this is a conversation every governor's having, right? And we're not unique on that, is how to maximize the benefits and minimize the challenges on that, right? And that's easier said than done. And so I'm confident that this group of all the issues I mentioned, that was, I said, not an exhaustive list. And so making sure we're addressing those issues, what are the opportunities for the state when it comes to AI? And hey, where are the harms that we need to do our best to avoid that? So we work closely with folks around the state to make sure we're adopting policies to do that. And I'm confident that'll be a discussion for this group. Happy to have others want to, if anyone else wants to jump in on that, feel free, go for it, Chris. Yeah.
I think one of the things about AI is it's not a single shift to a whole economy. It is thousands of new economies. And what we're seeing, I just want to give you an example of why it's important to think about thousands of opportunities for the state of Washington. AI in the broad field of agriculture will transform the way that not only that we can feed more people, but that the nutritional value of how we do that, it will be transformed by AI. And when you think about that in the nutshell of everything else that we both do well and wish to do well, we can build very large-scale economies that others can't, because we have assets like agriculture and prodigious biocapability and a vet med school and medicine out the wazoo. So just think about it as many economies, not just one.
I think she worked in Wazoo. I think she worked in Wazoo. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was good. Other questions folks have before I come back to Chris? I just want to make sure I get everybody else. Yes.
Are you worried that your party is becoming too anti-business?
Am I worried that the Democratic Party is becoming too anti-business? I guess what I would say is, I mean, when you speak about a party, it's not a monolith, right? I mean, you have a pretty big range of folks. We saw in the elections just yesterday. So I'm always sort of hesitant to speak about the party in a general sense. What I would say, and I've said before, is I think that we, Democrats, speaking as a Democrat, and I think of our state legislature, for example, I think we need to refocus on the impact of policies that are adopted and what that impact is on the business community. Do I believe that? Yes. And look, I've taken on my friends in the legislature on some of these issues on how we budget, for example. So, you know, as you know, I inherited a $16 billion budget shortfall. That shortfall was never discussed during my campaign for governor. It became a headline the week after I got elected. Well, in looking at how we got there, one contributor to that is we have an Economic and Revenue Forecast Council that projects what our revenue is going to be for the next several years. If that council says you can expect 3.1% revenue growth, you would think you would budget to that. But state law allows the state, the legislature, and the governor to assume 4.5% revenue growth, even if that's not based on any reality. And year after year after year, before I was governor, that's what we did. Well, you're going to create problems for all sorts of folks, right? Your budget, and if you have impacts on your budget, leading to a shortfall, that impacts workers, that impacts businesses, that impacts the state. So that's why I said, look, I'm not going to sign a budget that assumes 4.5% revenue growth. It's got to be based on what the experts say it's going to be. That's what every business has to do. That's what every family has to do. That's what the state's got to do. And so, to your question, do I have to take on some of my friends in my party to accomplish that? Yes. Each budget I've signed, though, has been aligned with our actual revenue forecast and will as long as I'm governor. So, you know, my job as governor is just to make sure that we are focused on what I think are the right priorities for our state. And I do think that I hope one benefit of forming this group is that we are communicating clearly to everybody in Washington State, whatever their party affiliation is, how seriously I take this. And yeah, I think you'll see that reflected in policies that I propose as governor and that I'll be doing my best to persuade both Republicans and Democrats to adopt in the next session. I'm going to go back to Chris. They got one there. There we go. That helps. Yeah, thank you.
It speaks to the AI question.
Yeah.
Since you have this group together, and I just heard Mike reference East Wenatchee and data centers, that is obviously a controversial topic, not only in the state, around the country. Mm-hmm. In Canada, the federal government and the BC provincial government are now fully behind data centers, building 2 big ones in Vancouver, a 3rd one in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. You obviously know in the city of Seattle, there's already been talk of the moratorium and not building them here. Mm-hmm. In other parts of the state, East Wenatchee, Quincy, it's been a good thing. Yeah. Does there need to be some sort of standardized legislation before the state legislature that you would back with this group on how to build these out so everybody can be happy? I'd like to hear your answer, and also Mike as well, since you mentioned the one in East Wenatchee.
Sure. So it sounds like I'll have Mike add on. First, look, I've been around long enough to know that whatever you decide on data centers is one example, not everyone's going to be happy. Full stop. That's just the way that the world works when it comes to a topic like that. Number 2, look, I think you've seen some steps taken to address this. There's a whole task force that was put in effect to look at data centers and make some recommendations. In the last budget, we eliminated one of the tax breaks associated with data centers, in part to address the budget shortfall we have. So for me, one thing I try to do is find the right balance, right? I think that's some steps we took in the last session to do that. But I'm confident, to your point, you see this conversation, which I think you're alluding to, happening all across the country. I have zero doubt you'll see additional conversations there. I'm talking internally with my team about budget proposals, policies around that as well. But I don't want to get out ahead of that now. There's a lot of conversations to have with this group and individuals and other folks around the state. I'll see if Mike wants to add to that as well.
Yeah, maybe not much more. I agree with the governor that there needs to be the right balance for it. And, you know, a lot of that question is apropos to the AI question that happened, that as AI permeates more and more of the way that all of these companies and organizations do business, there will be more demand for data centers. But we think there's a way to do them responsibly. There's a way to do them with low impact to the environment. And there's a way to do them working close with local government to support their growth, particularly in a state like Washington that has a lot of advantages like low power in the eastern part of the state. Low power cost.
Any other questions folks have? And I think folks are, oh, sorry, one more. Yes, let's do it. And folks will be available afterwards as well if you have individual questions.
I also wanted to ask about taxes, if I could. Do you think we are done with tax increases? And also, is there more room for a more comprehensive reform as part of that conversation?
Yeah, and I'll see if others want to add to this. I'll say that I've been pretty clear in the budget I'll be proposing that I won't be proposing new taxes. I'm having individual conversations with legislators, and I'm communicating that as well. That's my expectation that in this session we're not raising taxes. I think the letter that you saw from KD, my budget, head of my budget team at OFM, pretty closely aligns with my approach on this. As a part of that, I think we've taken good steps on now aligning our budgeting, as I mentioned earlier, to our actual revenue forecast. We're still facing a significant shortfall next year, like you see a lot of governments are seeing that now. But I think this next session, one thing that will be absolutely critical is aligning our budget in a way so that every single year we're not facing a shortfall. That is what I'm communicating to every legislator I'm meeting with. I don't want to be doing this every year. Nobody back here wants to be doing this every year. Nobody in Washington State wants us to be doing this every year. In order to get there, it will not be easy, which is why I'm already started the budget process extremely early with agencies, months earlier than usual, because it's going to take a different approach to get us there. Also, in doing our budget this year, and I'm communicating this as well, is preserving our AAA bond rating. We're one of, I think, just about a dozen states in the country that have a AAA bond rating. That is something to be proud of. It saves us money. It's important. In my 20 years in politics, I don't think I've ever been a part of a government that didn't have a AAA bond rating, going back to my King County Council days, so I know how important that is. And so making sure we adopt a budget that addresses the constructive feedback from the rating agencies. In order to do that, we need to make sure we're addressing our long-term budget situation in a sustainable way. That's easy for me to say that. It'll be challenging to do it, but that'll be my approach. Yep. The question is, does that mean cuts? Well, of course, yeah. We're going to be facing in all likelihood a multi-billion-dollar shortfall. So now what we have to do is do that in a way that's thoughtful, right? And again, that's where it becomes difficult. But as one example, I don't want to go. I can chat afterwards if you like. But I'm looking at what are some new programs we've adopted since 2019, for example, right? And closely scrutinizing those. So it'll be a challenging budget process, but I'm optimistic we'll get through it. Last one, yeah, go for it.
An expectation of no new taxes next year. Is that careful wording? That's not a commitment that if you got a tax increase that you would veto it.
Well, we were talking about, first of all, something that's many months away. First thing what I've got in front of me is my proposed budget, which will not have taxes. Number two, what I'm communicating to legislators is my expectation is we get through this budget cycle this next session without raising taxes. And I'm being very clear about that expectation. So, look, you've been around long enough to know we got literally close to a year before that session is over with. So we have a long way to go. My job right now is focus on what I can control. Proposing a budget, responsible, preserves our AAA bond rating, doesn't raise taxes, makes some difficult choices, but puts us on the right path going forward. Thank you so much, everybody, and give a big round of applause to all the folks on this team who are going to be doing fantastic work. So appreciate their service. Thanks, everybody.